we get started, you guys are been great sitting through this all day. If everyone can just stand up for a second, I want to try something. It'd be fun, stretch the legs, you know. Okay, so what I want everyone to do is point at the ceiling and go clockwise. Okay? And as you're pointing now, lower it below your eyes and look down. And my question to everybody is, which way is your hand going now? Counterclockwise. So you started up here and it's going clockwise. You didn't change anything, and it was going counterclockwise. Does anybody, why is that? Changing your perspective, right. That's all I got. If you could sit down, thank you. but there's two reasons I did that. One, it's really interesting, you know, the same set of facts and circumstances, the perspective that you have on it, it can look completely 180 different. So it's really good to think about that. Second reason is, you know, you're used to us just talking and going. You want to take a pause, get your minds working a little bit again, and doing that. Susan, if she's still here, that was really great. Thank you very much. I really love sort of. Sometimes we get so caught up in being a business that you think about the purpose of sort of who we are and being a human. My core purpose is to inspire people to learn and grow, and I think that's what attracted us to each other. So I'm David Schnurman. It's my father, Alan. So I'll just take 2 minutes to sort of tell you my background, and then I'll hand it over to my dad. He'll do his thing. He is a very positive, inspirational person. And then I will close it off with 10 tips that you can do to become a more positive person for yourself and for others. They're practical things you can actually start using tomorrow. And then we'll open up to questions and hopefully have a dialogue. By the way, we love interaction, so if you disagree or have a question in the middle, I don't know if that's allowed, but feel free to do that. So I have 3 kids, twins and a 1-year-old baby. I live in Park Slope, Brooklyn, if anyone else does. But I've realized my entire life I've been on a journey of internal discovery. I didn't realize that until I started my own business. I always thought I was on a journey to be a better leader, a better manager. But what I realized was I loved, anyone see the movie Cocktail? Okay, so when I do it with a younger audience that's nobody knows, but I'm glad at least somebody knows, Tom Cruise always had an entrepreneur book behind the bar. And I've always been that person who've had some sort of self-help or entrepreneur book behind the bar. And so one of the first things I did was read a lot of books. Did anyone ever read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Okay, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Richard Kiyosaki, a really great book. Sort of changes how you think about being an entrepreneur and your mindset, but it does not tell you how to start a business. And when I read that book, it got me really fired up about wanting to be an entrepreneur, but it didn't tell me how to do it, so I decided to interview hundreds of entrepreneurs and create an online TV show, a public access show called True NYC, and I did this a long time ago, but I'll speed up the conversation. Ultimately, in 2006, I graduated law school, and I teamed up with an entrepreneur who did website development. My dad in 1999, during the dot-com boom, had started Lawline. After the market crashed, he went back to practicing law, but left the site up there. The site was just really a site that wasn't really getting traffic, and I decided after law school there's an opportunity to educate attorneys after they became practicing attorneys and do continuing education. I started by myself with an intern, and now we're the largest provider of online continuing legal education 7 years later. We have 30 full-time employees. We have 100,000 attorneys who've used our product. We have 1 million courses completed last year. And the whole journey that I built when I first started it was to build a company that nobody has seen since the likes of Google. Obviously, that was a big reach, but I wanted to build a great culture. Does anyone know Zappos? So I wanted to build a culture like Zappos. My dad is a very successful entrepreneur, but more so what I didn't realize in this whole journey is he's a very happy and successful person. Some people can be successful financially, but be miserable. And what I realized is he has both of those. And as I read all these books, and I'll go through some of those tips, as I was struggling through the business, he would sit down and be my mentor. And I realized what I was trying to achieve, he already achieved on many levels, but he can tell me it, and we can tell everybody. It doesn't mean you'll do it. So that's what's great about self-improvement. It's a lifelong learning opportunity for all of us. And so for me, the reason this makes sense here is, similar to what Susan says, we want to unlock our potential. We want to unlock our potential as individuals, because the more we're inspired, and the more we can control how we think and how we feel, the better we can affect those around us, those in our company, those who are our customers, and society. So with that said, I want to pass it over to my dad, and then if he keeps going, I'll let him know, and then I'll come back in to give you some tips.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Russell, for having both of us down here. I met Russell through David, and it was a wonderful experience. What was interesting is when I was listening to Susan, I remembered my own background. I was raised by a single mother who came from the Ukraine back in the early 1900s, who didn't speak a word of English, didn't have any job, who lived on the couch of her uncle's apartment on the Lower East Side. And at that time, the only thing women could do was the lowest type of jobs. And I have to tell you, my mother was one of the most brilliant women I've ever met. And I'm listening to this. And of course, she became a seamstress and worked in a shop with 60 or 70 other women. And then I used to go to the shops, and to me, it was amazing. I mean, she would introduce me to everybody there, and all the women, and the cutters, and the tailors, and it was a magical world to me. But of course, she only worked 6 months a year because that type of business was seasonal for women. That's all they could do. So 6 months a year, she worked, and 6 months a year, every Wednesday we went to the unemployment line. And I always remember the unemployment line. So, you know, it's, even here, women at one point, it was very, very difficult, very difficult. But I have to tell you, every time, because when I came home from school, I stayed by myself. I tried to make dinner for her when she came. Whatever I made from the freezer, I would throw it in. But every time I came home, she came home from work, and we lived in Coney Island, and it must have taken her an hour and a half by subway, and she had to walk down the subways and up the subways, the stairs. Whenever she got home, she praised me. And she taught me that I could do anything I wanted. There was no limit what you could do. And she did it day in and day out. We had nothing. The biggest thing we could do is go to the movies. And we'd save up for that. It was always a big event. But I can tell you that this woman who was so smart, she would, by praise and what I call RAP, recognition, appreciation, and praise, she gave me enormous confidence. I mean, we had nothing. I went to public school. I went to Brooklyn College. I got a scholarship to New York Law School. But she made me believe that I could do anything. There was no limit of what I could achieve, and there was no limit of what I could do. I had no boundaries. She had boundaries. I saw that, and she told me that, but I did not have it. And it was really an amazing thing. So when I was listening to Susan, it all came back to me. And basically, that's what I want to tell you. That you have no boundaries. That you think you have boundaries, but you don't. It's so easy in this country to succeed now. Everybody could succeed. I can tell each and every one of you how to be successful. But of course, successful is a very personal thing. Success to me, one, is self-respect in my job. Two, of course, is monetary. And three is respect of my peers, which is very important to me. But the whole idea, and listen closely, because it's no secret, you want to be successful, then don't be scared of failure. Because we're all afraid to fail. Every day I'm scared I'm going to fail. Every day I know there's boundaries I can't go beyond. So what I've done is I take from people who are much smarter than me. And I took those quotes that I say to myself, as I told Russell, every single day. And I re-energize myself with these quotes, that I can do it, I can achieve it, that I'm not limited by boundaries. And my mother told me that. I mean, she didn't hear these quotes, but she told me that, and I believe them. I'm going to give you my quotes that I basically live by. Attitude equals altitude. Attitude equals altitude. If you have a good attitude, no matter what happens to you in life, you'll take care of it. It means be positive. Everybody around you is negative. You know, when I do a deal and I speak to my accountant or I speak to my lawyer, yes, I have a lawyer. I have lots of lawyers. I also have a barber, by the way. When I speak to them, they'll say, "Now, Alan, don't do that deal. Oh, it's much too risky. You're not going to make anything. Listen, you have no experience." I used to listen to them in the beginning. But then I found out it's what I believe in, not what they believe in. What do they know? That's my accountant and their lawyer. They're still accountants and they're still lawyers. I'm an entrepreneur, and I want to be successful. And the way to be successful is being ahead of the curve. Do things that other people haven't done. And don't be scared to fail, because I will fail. And then I'll fail again. But eventually I'll succeed. It's the perseverance. Don't be scared of failing. That's how you succeed. I can't tell you enough times that. All right, that's my first one. Second one. I can, I will, I must. Let's do that again. I can, I will, I must. Let me hear you say it. I can, I will, I must. I can, I will, I must. Now, if you really can believe that, you said it, but if you really can believe it, you can do anything you want. Anything. I can, I will, I must. Now, I say that to myself every morning. Why? Because I don't believe it. I have to re-energize myself. I don't believe I can do it. I don't. But if I keep saying it to myself, well, maybe I'll make it true. My third quote, and my most important quote, and this comes from Helen Keller. Listen to this one. Helen Keller. You know who she was. Anybody don't know who Helen Keller was? Optimism. Optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. Let me repeat it. Optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. Nothing can be done without hope and confidence. Nothing can be done without hope and confidence. So using these three quotes, what I've achieved my own personal success. To myself, I finally have become successful. I became monetarily successful years ago. But to have my own self-respect, how wonderful is that? To have respect of my peers who I respect, how wonderful is that? Okay, first, I always hold family is first and foremost in my life. I work with my son. We work with our daughter, who is our house counsel. We're all lawyers. Or who's our house counsel and head of HR. But let me tell you, what Vince said this morning really sparked something with me. One, he was talking about, I mean, we run a company, you know, we have lots of employees, money keeps rolling in. But, you know, you have 30 employees, you have 30 challenges. And so Michelle, yesterday, she gave an announcement. We just recently went to a firm that now has hired all our employees to them because we went with them and they pay their salaries. We get a bill, of course. But now we get health care. We get better benefits for health care, which, by the way, was our second biggest expense after employees. So they pay all our employees. We got better health care at a lower rates. So Michelle, who's 5 feet tall, my mother was 4'11", so 5 feet in my family is a very good height. 5 feet tall. To all these 30 employees, she tells them, one, you'll be paying $1,500 a year less for health care, and you'll get better benefits. They applauded her. They stood up. In all the years, we've never had employees so happy. A standing ovation. Michelle could not have been happier. So, Vince, that goes to show you, what was the term you used? Internal marketing. I'll have to remember that. I'm going to take that back. Internal marketing. You keep the employees happy. The same thing my mother did to me. RAP, recognition, appreciation, and praise. You give that to your employees, and they'll keep paying back. They'll be the way they handle our customers. I sit there, David has built a most magnificent office, and he has a closed office. I sit outside, just at desks like this. And his sister has an office. We have to discuss that. But I sit outside, and I hear them, and I'm sitting with all the employees, and I'm always wondering,
If you came more than once a month, then maybe.
Well, I have other things to do. But I'm here. They're talking about the ball games. They're talking about the date last night. I sit there and I say, when do they work? I'm not allowed to talk directly to the employees, by the way.
He's about to get cut off. So.
That's what he's there for.
We got 45 minutes. We don't know.
All right. So you understand how it works. You want to be successful, don't be afraid of failure. You say my quotes. Also, I always believe physically you have to take care of your health. You really have to take care of your body. You know why? No one else is going to. Not your husband, not your wife, and certainly not your children. No one really cares about your health as much as you do. So if you're healthy, and not just one time a year on December 31st, you say, this year I'm going to do the following next year. But think about it, and you'll be surprised how exercise and eating right makes you feel great. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel proud of yourself every single day you do it. All right.
So, by the way, the way he talks there, whether it's a room of 500, a room of 50, or a room of 1, it's exactly the same. Russell, am I right? Same energy. So what I wanted to do...
And I spoke to him as he was growing up. It was the same thing. He would walk out of the room.
It is tough for me to hear.
He would walk out. I'd still be talking.
So what I really do want to do, because to me this is about you guys walking away with at least one thing from this talk that you can use tomorrow or tonight. And so on my road to discovery, like I said, I've gone through a lot of different things. So what I want to do is go through 5 ways that you can improve your own attitude, and then 5 ways you can improve those around you. So number 1 is how to never complain again. So I'm wearing a bracelet right now. It's called A Complaint-Free World. Has anyone ever heard of it? Okay. There's 6 million of these out there right now. And the purpose of them is to go 21 days without complaining. And if you complain within those 21 days, you have to take the bracelet from one hand and switch it to the other hand. And then you have to start all over. So you have to go 21 days straight. And the reason this is important is what we say controls, goes to our thoughts and to our emotions and sort of controls who we are. And it's not enough to say I'm not going to complain anymore. This is a habit that has to be formed over time. By the way, if anyone can successfully, I've been doing this 3 months. I'm on day 2 right now. People who go through it, generally it takes 8 months to actually make it happen. It is a really interesting way. By the way, all the things I'm going to tell you about today all interact with each other, so they're all different variations of the same thing. So that is a really interesting thing to try. A Complaint-Free World it has changed me a lot in the past 3 months, and things that you normally say you hold back from, and you recognize all the complaining around you, and if you can start complaining, it will have an effect on those around you. How to feel great, number 2. For me, by the way, there's 10 things I can be saying for each one, but I'm just choosing my favorite. Has anyone ever heard of the book, The Morning Miracle? Good, this is great. So I highly recommend the book. The Morning Miracle talks about how to wake up and feel like every morning is Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever makes you happy in that morning. And what you do is you wake up an hour earlier than you normally wake up. And you spend that hour, no shaking the heads, so hear me out. So you wake up an hour earlier than you normally do. And you spend that hour focusing on yourself, whether it's journaling, whether it's reading a book, whether it's exercising, whether it's creating a visual chart of sort of where you want to go. You spend that time on yourselves. I don't know about everybody else here, but I feel like it is so busy now. I don't know what it is. Obviously, I have 3 kids and I run a company and other things, but I just feel like life is so busy. That time in the morning is, I changed from a non-morning person to a morning person, and it's been 2 years. And here's 3 tips to make it happen for you. And I recommend trying it tomorrow. 3 tips to make it happen for you. Number 1, move your phone away from your bed, so when the alarm goes off, you actually have to walk to get it. Because I don't know about you, but I've hit alarm 1, 2, 3 times, and I look forward to hitting the snooze button. Number 2, as soon as you get up, you walk to the bathroom and brush your teeth. It feels like caffeine in the morning. And number 3, drink a full glass of water. Those 3 things wake you up. And I look forward to that time alone when I have it to myself. It allows me to set my day, by the way, and focus on sort of what I'm doing that day and reflect on the day before. Number 3, how to take ownership. Has anyone ever heard the book, The Success Principles by Jack Canfield? Awesome. So Jack Canfield, he is the guy who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. The Success Principles, he has 100 principles in there on how to be successful. When I read the first principle, it caught me and I was hooked. It said, no, in life, you complain about your boss to your wife, about your wife to your boss, about other employees. In life, you have to take 100% responsibility for everything that occurs in your life and everything about it. And when I read that, it really had an effect on me. And then I read another book called Principles of Thought Management, and I actually hired the author to be my coach. And what she said in the book, and again, these are all similar things, there's only 2 things in life that you can control. Does anyone know what those are? You want to wager a guess? Your actions, your thoughts. Right, so pretty much how you think and how you feel. What you cannot control, and this is what I learned the hard way is, and the way how this relates to your work environment, is I would sit down with somebody and I would ask them to do something back in the days. And I would say, here's what I want you to do, and go do this, this, and this. Next day it wouldn't be done. I said, I must have done something wrong. Let me speak with more energy. So I said it again, and it still wasn't done. Then a third person would come in, or a second person, and I would say the same thing, and it would be done that moment. And I couldn't understand what I said differently. Then I realized it wasn't me, it was them. I couldn't control what they wanted. They had to control that themselves. So what we can't control the weather, we can't control politics, you can vote, but you can't control your husband, you can't control your wife, your employee, or your boss. But the most important thing is, we always think the outside is where all the challenges are. The challenges are right in here, and that's why it's so important. If you can create your own perception, and by how you think and how you feel, your attitude will equal your altitude. Number 4, how to exercise your mind. Does anybody in here do any regular journaling? You get an A+ for today. So through my coach, her process about 2 years ago was journaling, and then she commented on your journals. Journaling to me has been transformation as well. I journal regularly. I don't want to say daily because I don't, but I do it as much as I can. And when I journal, it gives me the ability. So 2 softwares I'll recommend if you want to do them online. One is Penzu, Penzu. It's free. And one is Frame of Mind Coaching. When you journal and you can reflect on the day before, you can talk about the day ahead, you can do a brain dump. But what happens is you actually get, at least I do, I feel like I get smarter as I journal, because the things that you say it's hard to think through how you really feel. And the journaling is an area of self-exploration. I highly recommend it. You actually feel happier, especially if there's an issue and you're not sure what it is, you can sort of go through that. And the best part is after 2 or 3 years or 2 or 3 months of journaling, you can go back and see sort of what your life's about. I can tell you, I look back at journals 2 to 3 years ago, so maybe you shouldn't listen to a word I'm saying because a lot of the same issues I have today I had then. But at least I'm aware of it. Number 5 is the importance of believing in something bigger. Has anyone ever read the book The Secret or seen the documentary? So The Secret is all about the law of attraction. And the law of attraction essentially says that if you believe that something will happen and you put the vibes out that something will happen, you will attract, the universe will move out of its way to make that happen for you. And I know it sounds sort of hokey, that's the word. I can tell you it is the same phrase as the harder you work, the luckier you get. And the only reason I'm here today is because of the law of attraction. And what I mean by that is I met Russell through finding him on Inc. magazine, through reaching out to him about wanting to do things together, to him meeting me, to me introducing him to my dad, to him interviewing us on his online TV shows, to then him having this conference, from all those same type of things. In my view, all that came together because we put out the vibes. We're both lifelong learners, and that sort of comes together. Just to put it in terms that you can understand sort of how to really do that, if you win the lottery, you win $100 million. That day, you feel different. Would you guys agree you'd feel a little different? Even though you don't have the money, you're not spending $1, you're not doing anything with it, you're not getting it for 4 months, you feel different, you feel stronger, you feel confident about that because you know you're getting that money in 4 months. The same way you know you're getting that money in 4 months, you have to believe X or Y. Your business is going to do that. You're going to be successful, you're going to give a great talk, you're going to run a marathon. You have to believe it that much, and it's that much of a foregone conclusion, and that's when things will go through your way. So those are the 5 tips of how to improve your attitude. I can throw it back to you for a few minutes if you want, and then I can end off on the 5 ways to improve others' attitudes. And back to my dad.
What I didn't tell you was that about 35 years ago, after I lost money in the stock market, I decided was not for me. I would invest in the stock market. If the stock doubled, I sold it, and then it went up 10 times. And I hate to say it, if it went down, I still have it. So I realized, I read Forbes magazine, I was in the dentist's office, and I was looking at Forbes 400, and I saw all these people who really became so rich. They became rich in real estate. And I said, wow, that's pretty good. I have no money, but you know, I want to have money one day, you know, because I was tired of not having money. I was really just tired of not, you know, I got married early. My wife was teaching, so we had her income, but you know, I really wanted to raise our standard of living. This is before we had children. And I realized that investing in real estate, just like these people who made all the money, was the way to go. Because it fit my personality. It's slow, it's reliable, and methodical. And now it's all these years later, and I have never lost 1 penny in real estate. Isn't that interesting? I've had projects that I've made more money than others. But when you buy good location real estate, all you really have to do, you have to be patient for the market to come up to you. Just by a show of hands, how many people own their own home, their own co-op, or their own condo? I'd say that's most of the room. Now, of those people, how many people would say that's your major asset? A good number of people in the room. Well, that's what I realized. I realized that home ownership was the main asset of everybody. So what I started doing is, in the beginning when I was a lawyer and we had some extra money, I started buying condominiums. And then I rented them out. And that's when the rates were 11%. I thought, oh, 11%, that sounds fair. I didn't know. So you can imagine today when they're 3% or 3.5%, to me this is, oh my God, 11% money. And you remember Jimmy Carter? It was Jimmy Carter's time. And but then, you know, we gradually upped it, and we bought single-family homes. We rented them out. Then we bought small buildings, you know, a store and a couple apartments above, and those were rental income. And we did it in Brooklyn, and that's when cabs would not go to Brooklyn. I don't know if you remember that. And they would tell you, oh, I'm sorry, this is a Manhattan cab. Oh, I'm sorry, I got in. Oh, I didn't realize. But, you know, and little by little, I made decisions based upon that I had to do it slowly, and we built it, and we built it. Then we moved out. We got very active in the Hamptons. And I have to say, we became major developers in the Hamptons of land. And I really took risks. I took tremendous risks, risk-reward. I took risks because I didn't know better. I just didn't know better that I was taking such risks. I mean, I saw a nice piece of land. Who knew I had to go before a board, a village board, to have it rezoned that would take me 3 years before they would give me permission? And that I had to satisfy a community of interests, that everybody, and I went to meetings where there were double the amount of people than are in this room, and they all hated me. And I would sit, well, they didn't know who I was, but they knew the name, and I would sit in a chair in the back, and Judy, my wife, would sit beside me, and they would say things like, we walked by this property for 30 years. I can't believe you're going to allow houses to be built there. Well, the law said I could build there. But, you know, and eventually we built, and we sold the lots, and we built land, and that was successful, and we did it again, and that was successful. And then we built more buildings here in Manhattan. Manhattan is the greatest real estate area in the world. I don't care what you buy in Manhattan. I don't care where you buy it in Manhattan. You want to make money? Manhattan. It's just, I don't care if it's a co-op, I don't care if it's a condo, long as you follow the basic rules of real estate. And they were true 200 years ago, they're true today, and they'll be true in 200 years. And this is what they are. You know about location. You know to always buy the right location. The best location your money will buy. Location, location, location. You've heard it all. Worth 3 times the money. Second, if you're going to invest in real estate, you got to be patient. If you're not patient, buy stock. It's not for you. You have to have patience. I have patience. But it's so reliable, and you'll always win if you're just patient. Because the market always comes back. The market always improves. It just takes time. And never, ever be overly leveraged. Let me say that again. Never be overly leveraged. Don't take so many mortgages out that when the market turns against you, and all markets will turn against you. Markets go up and down, up and down, up and down. That you'll have to sell. And that's what happened in this Great Recession. I call it the Great Recession. It was the worst recession in real estate that I have ever seen. I was selling a lot of stuff. I didn't get any calls. The only calls I was getting is from stores that couldn't pay their rent. They couldn't pay their rent, so I just extended the period of time. I said, pay me at the end. I didn't want to have a dark store. But let me tell you about down markets in real estate. You know, it's like catching a falling knife. The market's going down, the stock market's going down, the bonds market's going down, and real estate's going down. Where do I grab it? I know it is. I have a saying. You know me and my saying and my quotes. This one I made up. When you're crying, you should be buying. Because had you bought in 2009, had you bought in 2010, I don't have to tell you, try to go buy something today. Prices are sky high. An apartment, they're asking over $1 million, and you can't even get a bed in it. I saw an ad yesterday. It said, a king-size bed for this bedroom. They're telling you the bedroom's so big you can get a king-size bed. What about a dresser? It didn't say anything about a dresser. But that's the point I'm bringing out. You know, if you can get that mindset, that's an easy way of investment. Because why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this to be independent. You know what? To be financially secure and independent allows you to do anything you want. You know, it doesn't make you happy, but it just makes you financially secure. What a nice thing to be. Financially secure, that when the telephone bill comes in, you can pay it. You know, and in our society, where we live here, financial security, you know, is a major, major item. So I just gave you all my, in a half hour. I'm going to call all of you in a few years. I'm going to see what happened if you listened. All right, I got all your addresses.
So what he's not saying, and what's important to recognize, and I just know because we've talked many times and I understand it. We're all thinking, you know, great, that's you. How am I gonna? I'm not gonna be able to do that. Like, great, you're talking about buying Manhattan real estate. Thanks for nothing. You know, you're telling us about your deals in the Hamptons. Great, thank you. Why do I need to know about that? Ultimately, it has to do with attitude equals altitude. The only way you can be successful in real estate is if you have a positive outlook. That's it. I mean, I got something, but go ahead.
I just have to tell you, when I had no money whatsoever, what I did was I learned a particular area in Brooklyn, in Brownstone, Brooklyn, and I knew everything about that area. I had no money. So I'd go around with all the brokers, like 3 brokers, and I'd see $1 million properties. I had no money, but it was a great experience. And then when I saw a project that was good, well, a good price, I called people I knew. I called my relatives. I called anybody I could. I called my friends. I said, listen, this is a good buy. I've done my due diligence. I don't know why it's a good buy, but it's a good buy, and we can rent it for this, and let's all chip in, or you chip in, and we'll make a go. And people believed me. Credibility, trustworthiness. And that's how I did it. Okay. So you can do it without money.
But it's really, it is important, because even being this close in his son, it is a really challenging thing to overcome, to be that positive and to not be able to afford what you can buy and to know that it will turn out in the right way. So I'm going to go through the 5 ways to influence others to have a positive attitude that will also affect you. And then we will open up to any questions or conversations that sort of come from it on real estate or whatever you want to talk about. All right, so number 1 is how to give positive feedback the right way. Has anyone ever heard of the term fill your bucket or your bucket? Mm-hmm. You have?
Well, so to get positive feedback so that you're filling up and you're feeling fulfilled yourself by helping others.
Exactly. So we all have this proverbial empty bucket, and we either can fill it with positive emotions or empty it so there's no bucket there. So one of the things which is very challenging for me as a leader running a company is how do you have a conversation with somebody, especially if you have to give them constructive criticism and have them leave feeling more energized and empowered. And there are people who are professional. My COO is a professional manager. He can do it without even thinking. I cannot, and I really have to work hard on that. But what I've learned, and there's a book, How to Fill Your Bucket. It's a really quick book, and I really it's or an hour to listen to on Audible. Is when you're talking to somebody, you want to make sure to give positive feedback in addition to any criticism or constructive criticism that you have, and it has to be authentic. And you can find something. It doesn't, it can be that you come in on time. It can be that I know you can do it. It can be I know who you are. But if you leave them and you give them that, the key to success there, it actually fills up your bucket at the same time. And you just have to think, every conversation you have with somebody, how do they leave? Did you fill their bucket or did you empty their bucket? And it becomes a really fun game. One way to play that game is you take a penny, you put it in your pocket. Whenever you give somebody a positive comment, you take the penny, you put it in your other pocket, and you kind of do that. And you see people, and you know you're playing a game, and you give somebody a compliment, and they're like, oh, wow, thank you. And you're like, yeah, sure. And then you put it in the other, and you just see how the effect it has. It is really, it's addicting. So filling your bucket, filling other people's bucket also fills your bucket. Number 2, how to attract the right people. So early on, has anyone ever read Good to Great from Jim Collins? It's a long book. It's really better to listen to at 2 times speed. I guess the downside is many of the companies in the book are now out of business. But the concepts in it were really interesting. But he also wrote an article for Harvard Business Review about core values. And he talked about if you have core values in an organization, the way to figure them out is to take whoever, if you were moving your company to Mars, who would be the people in your organization you would take with you and move to Mars? Or if you have a group, who would be the people in your group you would go to Mars and start that group or that company over. And then you try to think, okay, what are the core values that those people embody? So early on, and he also said, it doesn't matter what your core values are, as long as you scream them to the rafters and you put them out and you let everyone know. And of course, that's how Zappos had built their company. So I said, okay, that sounds like a good idea. So we did that, and we created core values. We created core value cards, a newsletter, a blog. We sort of hired it by that. And so our core values, just to share them, is the acronym ASTED: actively learning, seeking creative solutions, taking time to help others, exuding optimism, and driven to find a better way. And what's so great about them is as you put them out there to those who you're looking to hire and work with, you attract others who embody those core values. And so it has a self-fulfilling prophecy where you're attracting the right people, getting the right people on the bus to sort of help grow the company. And of course, they come from my internal core values as an individual. So they're really, again, doesn't matter. Many core values sort of don't remember, whatever they are, as long as you keep saying them. And the cornier you say it, the better. As a leader of your group, there is a corniness part that you should have. Number 3, what you say counts. This is a real quick example. 3 years ago, or about that, my kids, twins, did potty training. And there was a 3-day potty training book. And one of the things in the book, it said, instead of telling your kids, so when you ask your kids, instead of going, do you have to pee? Do you have to pee? Do you have to pee? Every 2 minutes, do you have to pee? Because you don't want to, because literally 3 days you follow them, you do it on a weekend, you follow them around the house in underwear instead of with a diaper, and you just keep asking them and they sort of get used to it. Instead of asking them that, you change what you say and go, tell me when you have to pee. So you decide when you have to, and it takes it from a micromanaging type of thing to giving them control and empowering them to tell you that. And to me, that's leadership in itself right there. Is you can effectively give people ownership and control, and it's empowering and they can grow. So I always think of that concept when I'm trying to see if I'm following up or if I'm actually empowering somebody. Number 4, a great technique to creating a vision. Again, these all are sort of the same type of thing, but one of the things when we wanted to create our vision was we were sort of trying to think ahead, and every time we did it, we were like, well, no, that's too big a vision, that's impossible. How can we create an online university for everybody now? There's too many competitors out there. So the best way to do it is pretend that you've already achieved what you want. So a university for lifelong learning, right? That's good, yeah. And then you tell the story of how you got there. And it's a lot more fun. And so you can come up with a lot of different goals, big goals that you want, and then have some fun. When you tell the story how you got there, you can't say, I didn't do it, because you already did it. So you just sort of have fun, and it leads to this sort of area. And as you do that, you can literally create different types of visions in 10 minutes or less, sort of doing that. And we did that in our company many times, and it's really been helpful to sort of see what markets we want to get into and how to do that. And number 5, I want to share 5 themes of success that I've gotten from, I've done hundreds and hundreds of interviews with entrepreneurs through True NYC. The site's still on there. It was the earlier version of SarderTV. If I kept with that, I probably could have been a contender and had a really big online network. So from all these interviews, I started seeing themes and what people were saying, whether they were female or male, what background they have, all different things. And these are all things, again, first of all, the first thing I realized, this is not even a theme, but there's no magic answers. I just kept, tell me how you did it. Tell me how you started the business. And you would just hear the same things. I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. Was that a fair statement? There's no magic answers? So the 5 things, though, I think are important to share and just so you can take with you. 1, and this is probably the most important one, you have to be a doer. You can't talk about it. Just do it. He asked if you want to speak at this event. Oh, I don't know. I'm a little nervous. I don't know what I'm going to say. Just do it and then figure out what you're going to talk about. But obviously, things like that, just do it. Number 2, you can't listen to the negativity of naysayers. What I realized as an entrepreneur, that is our right. You're not an entrepreneur unless you have those around you or people telling you it's not a good idea or it's not going to work. Mostly it's from your family. Why? Why is it from your family? They love you. They want to protect you. They don't want to see you get hurt, of course. Or they've never done it before and they couldn't imagine doing it. And generally, if it's something new or different, nobody, YouTube, it doesn't make sense. Why do you want to do that? Things like that. So that's number 2. Number 3, you can't be afraid to make mistakes. It's easy to say, harder to do in practice, because we all want to get things right and sound good in this speech. I don't want anyone to leave and be like, well, Dave wasn't actually that good. He made a lot of mistakes. But you just can't be afraid. You got to put yourself out there. Number 4, and one of the reasons I'm here is you got to get out there and network. I believe speaking in front of other people, but by the way, one of my core beliefs is teaching is the best form of learning. To speak in front of people and share ideas, whether they're right or wrong or made up, you sort of have to be coherent in a message. And in order to be coherent, you sort of have to know what you're talking about. It takes a lot of learning. I love that process. So I highly recommend any opportunity you have, put yourself out there and speak in front of others about anything. You will grow as an individual. But that's not what I was talking about. Networking. So actually, speaking in front of people is networking too, because you get to know everyone. For better, for worse, you guys have to listen. Hopefully somebody's listening to something. But I'm better with conversations. I love learning about other people, and that's why I can speak to anyone and speak about understanding who they are and what makes them different. And you have to do others, similar to what Susan was saying, without wanting anything in return. It's such a core concept of life. Like, you just have to be selfless. And I'll leave on this note. It's actually something my dad came to a conclusion when he was a kid, and on my own, I sort of figured that out. Did anyone ever watch Cosmos, the original one with, what's his name again? Oh my God. Carl Sagan. Okay. So at one point he talks about the Voyager satellite. It was just leaving the solar system. And what they did was they turned the Voyager satellite around and they took a picture of the Earth. And you can Google it and it's online. And if you look, the Earth is like a speck of dust in the distance. Carl Sagan in his voice and he's like, that speck of dust, like all wars, all pain, all suffering, all fears, all happiness, everything took place on that speck of dust. And ultimately, it puts in perspective, and this is something my dad says, and I totally agree, is the reason it's okay to make a decision is because all you have to do is think about in 50 years, that decision doesn't mean anything. It's gone. It didn't have any effect. I mean, assuming you're not hitting the nuclear bomb button, but for most of us, it doesn't have an effect. So that's why you just put things in perspective, have some fun, enjoy what you're doing, and thank you very much, and open up to questions or comments or disagreements. Thank you.